massive, intense, unbreakable rules. It is always good to have them in general in life, not only in health, but also with your finances, but also when it comes to traveling. Everyone should have some basic principles to stick with. And maybe you are someone who is interested to either travel to the Philippines or even to retire in the Philippines. And also when it comes to traveling, it is always better to have massive, intense, unbreakable rules to follow. And because it's a new country, new rules, everything is a little bit different, right? And I stumbled upon a very interesting viewer comment just recently by a guy who is living in the Philippines now, who has been living in the Philippines for many years. And I read his comment, and he basically spoke about his own personal, massive, intense, unbreakable rules he personally follows, but also he advises us and other people to also follow. So in this video, I will go through the 10 of his tips he gave in his comment, and I also will comment on these rules because I find them very interesting, but also very solid, simple, and they will keep you definitely safe and out of trouble in the Philippines. Yeah, and I don't know what your motivation is to travel to Southeast Asia. Is it the lifestyle? Do you like the tropicals, or you want to retire? Is it the lower cost of living? Is it the nature, or is it even dating? By the way, speaking of dating, if you really want to make it to the Philippines, but also want to find a beautiful partner for life, then I suggest you check out Christian Filipina, which is a dating service, award-winning in business already since 2009. They are conservative and very trustworthy, as I find, and many other people who use the service already. It's really a safe place to make new friends and meet new people, and especially if you are a Christian then and you are looking for a faith-based relationship, then Christian Filipina is something you want to check out. The link is in the description. So now let's run through the list of 10 tips this viewer gave in his comment. His first tip is, when you are in the Philippines, and by the way, these tips, they apply basically to all these Southeast Asian countries, not only the Philippines, and eventually they also apply to any country. But I also asked myself the question why this viewer actually gave these comments, these tips. Isn't it just common sense? Why do we have to mention this? Because some of the tips I will give you here, or the tips the viewer gave and I will comment on here, you will say for sure, hey Marcel, why are you bothering us with these things? These are just common sense. But no, for many people, or for some people, it is not so much common sense, and they are constantly run again and again into trouble, not only in the Philippines, but also in other Southeast Asian countries or maybe South American countries. So there is basically a market to cater these tips to these guys, because for some reason they always mess up or run into trouble. But also for the newbies, who never traveled to the Philippines, I think it's a good guidepost system, to keep an eye on and to integrate into your mental model, so to speak. Make it your philosophy, if it is not already your philosophy. So the first tip this viewer gives is to avoid unsafe locations. And this seems to be very common sense, but maybe for some guys it is not so much common sense. Anyway, so what you want to do is, you want to avoid certain areas of certain cities, or in the Philippines especially, you also want to avoid certain provinces, like some places in Mindanao, the Zulu area, in the very southern part of Mindanao. You can find all this information, I think, on the US Embassy website. I normally check out the German Foreign Ministry website, so they give all this kind of travel advice. So to avoid unsafe locations, and we sometimes we hear crazy stories coming out of the Philippines, where expats get even murdered, very sad, very tragic stories. So you really need to know where to go. In general, I will say the Philippines is a safe place overall. I'm not really sure, has the Philippines an even lower crime index than the United States? Don't take my word for it, but I saw the numbers just recently, and I believe the crime index rate is a little bit lower than the United States. But anyway, you still want to use your common sense, and you don't want to do things you wouldn't do in your home country. Like when you live in Chicago, I don't think you want to run around at 3 a.m. in the morning through some shady area. So the same rule applies for the Philippines. I always share the story many years ago, or almost 20 years ago, when I visited my Filipina girlfriend in Manila for the first time. She showed me around. We were walking through town. We went to Rizal Park, the big park there in the center of Manila. And then she asked me, once we approached this big square and wanted just to walk around, she asked me to take off my watch. And I asked her, why should I do this? And she said, just to be on a safe side, here are some thieves around. And so I just listened to her. I took off my watch, and she also took off her necklace, so even it was daylight, it was not the nighttime. So these kind of things. The second tip this viewer gave is to mind your own business. I really like this rule. It's part of my guidepost system, so to speak. This is the mature way to go. There are some expats who are not able to do that. They always have to stick their nose in other people's issues. So what you want to be and what you want to do is to be low-key in the Philippines. You want to be a fly on the wall, so to speak. Because you also have to understand that as a foreigner in the Philippines, even though there are plenty of expats now around in the Philippines, especially in certain areas, you are still very much on their radar, on the Filipino people's radar, especially if you decide to move to a more provincial area, to the deep province even, you will be probably the only expat, the only foreigner there. And trust me, you will be on their radar. People are watching you. They want to know who you are, what you do, what you don't do, where you go, where you don't go, with whom you hang around, with whom you not hang around. Do we have a girlfriend? If yes, how many? I don't know. Maybe you're a playboy. So these kind of things, I'm speaking here out of my own personal experience, because of my early days and years in Southeast Asia. I was completely clueless and naive, and it was not on my radar that I was not a superstar, but I was standing out. I was the alien, the foreigner. I looked differently, and you are gonna be watched, So you have to be aware of this, and you have to keep this in mind. And therefore, just with this knowledge already and with this awareness, just do your thing, mind your own business, don't interfere in any other people's businesses, stay low-key, be the fly on the wall, okay? Tip number 3 this viewer gave is don't make locals feel bad. And this seems to be another just common sense advice. Why are you bothering us with this? No, especially for newbies, you have to understand that, and I hope you understand that when you travel from a Western country to the Philippines, it is not just a different climate and different food and different currencies over there. It is a completely different culture. And I've done videos about it explaining this, how deep this really goes. That affects everything. Culture affects thinking, beliefs, behavior, conditioning, everything and anything. And the only very important thing you have to understand, especially as a newbie to the Philippines, is that the Filipino people are very, very sensitive people. Yeah. Like any other Southeast Asian nations, Filipino culture is all about face saving, way more than in Western cultures. And the Filipino culture is also a non-confrontational culture in general. Unlike Western culture, we guys, when we have an issue, a problem, we face it directly, aggressively, we want to sort it out. We have no issues to start an argument, even shouting and things like that. But that's different in the Philippines, and you have to understand that. So don't embarrass these local people, don't make them lose face, don't make them feel bad, especially not in public, okay? Because they will lose face, and losing face is a bad thing in the Philippines. Tip number 4, don't act like you have money. And this should actually be a no-brainer in a country like the Philippines, where poverty is still very, very visible. And especially you as a Westerner, you are perceived as someone who has money. This is another cultural thing these Southeast Asian nations, and especially the Filipinos, have about you. And you will never change this. This is so ingrained in their psyche and their belief system. This is just a stereotype we carry around for the rest of our lives. You are a Westerner, you have money, you are perceived as being rich. End of story. That's it. So basically, you carry in some way some status already. You don't need to put things on top or even start bragging and showing off and walking around with your gold chains and necklaces and whatnot, This can be very dangerous also in the Philippines, So don't be stupid and act like you have money. If you have money, just don't show it. Stay low profile, Mind your own business. I shared the story of this Filipino family in another video which I released many months ago. And I know this family, and they actually live in the United States, but once a year they travel back to the Philippines, to their hometown, to their province, But when they travel back to the Philippines to visit their relatives, they never travel with suitcases, and they also never announce their arrival in the Philippines. Certainly to their very close relatives, yes, but they will not post anything on social media or tell the whole world. So here you have a Filipino family who travels without suitcases and without any arrival announcement back to their own home country. Now you can ask yourself the question, why are they doing it? There's a very good reason why they do that. Exactly, they don't want to create any attention whatsoever, because they are living in the United States and all their relatives know, their village knows, or even the barangay and the city. Many people know that these folks are basically US citizens, and all hell will break loose if they announce their arrival, because, everybody will come and ask us something here and there, and expectations are high. So they know, this Filipino family knows exactly how Filipino people are and tick and what they want, So this is how they handle it, They also keep low profile, and The next tip, tip number 5 is, that's a funny one actually for me. Don't become a useless drunkard, you know. I don't know what to comment on this one. You see when you walk around with open eyes in certain areas, in certain cities, in certain districts in the Philippines, you're gonna see exactly these people I'm talking about here. This viewer just mentioned this. This is his tip. Don't become a useless drunkard. I think this is the worst way to basically live in the Philippines or hang around in the Philippines or even present yourself as a Westerner, as an expat to the Filipino community and the Filipino people, you know. But unfortunately we have some broken existences in the Philippines, you know, who, yeah, kind of never made it in their home country, and then they think they're... But anyway, this is a topic for itself. I don't want to judge these people. I'm just want to relaying here the 10 tips this viewer gave, which I find in general very, very solid. Okay, tip number 6, don't trust everyone. This is a tip I don't know if I would subscribe to don't trust everyone, but at least in the beginning you should approach it that way, because I also have made my fair share of bad experiences in the Philippines. This was solely due to my own naivety, yeah, and immaturity. I've released a video about this. I will link it, where you can watch, where I shared a story when I wanted to open a business in the Philippines, and I ran into some people who figured out pretty quickly that I was a very naive German guy and had a little bit of money and wanted to invest it, and they took advantage of me. So, and I trusted them way too early and way too fast. This is the big mistake I made. So especially in the beginning, you really want to have your guards up, and maybe it's better to trust no one, not even the cashier in the supermarket. It's maybe a little bit a radical of a statement, but you will be sailing safely until you get a knack, get a feeling about the Philippines and the people and how things work and about the dynamics. Just follow this tip and don't trust everyone, okay? And again, you as a foreigner are looked at with suspicion anyway also. So you have all the right also to be suspicious. It's for your own self-protection. Yeah. Tip number 7 is, this viewer says, to blend in. This is a very, very general comment, a very general tip, but this is the mindset you want to have basically, you know. You want to blend into the culture, into these dynamics. If you are not able to do this, if you cannot show a little bit a degree of adoption and adaptation and flexibility, then you're not going to make it in the Philippines. Even though there are so many videos out there about the Philippines now, and everything seems to be so hunky-dory and nice and easy, but it's still a different country with a different culture and everything. You will notice it latest when you arrive in the Philippines. Tip number 8, be polite and kind. This actually is a very similar tip to the one I talked about earlier, to not make the locals feel bad. Yeah, it seems to be also a no-brainer to be polite and kind, depending on what kind of personality you are. But I also have my fair share of blunders in Southeast Asia, and I just released a video recently where I talked about my blunders of not being so polite and not so kind to people in Malaysia when I was working there as a chef. Go watch this video. I'm very transparent there, and because my problem was in the early days and in the early years, even in the early years in Southeast Asia, I had an entitlement mentality, and that was my big problem. I was also arrogant, you know. But today I try to live by a a set of 3 simple rules. I want to be polite, number 1. I want to be respectful, and I want to be also patient. Patience is another big thing you need in the Philippines. Also, I will not go into details here, but this is my own standard I set myself. I always want to be polite and respectful and patient. And it is not always so easy, to be polite, because, we are dealing also with human beings. Filipinos are human beings. I'm a human being, and things go wrong sometimes. And so I don't need to tell you, life is not only going smoothly all the time. So sometimes, it's difficult also for me to remain polite, and even to remain respectful. But this is just the rule I set for myself. These are my guideposts also, because I want to improve. And we need to adopt to the culture also there in the Philippines. Tip number 9, this viewer gave is, be cautious with other foreigners. And this is a big one. This is a very important tip, and it sounds counterintuitive actually. Again, I'm speaking here from my own experience, because when I arrived there in Southeast Asia, Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, all these countries, I actually wanted to hang around my own buddies, expats from Europe, from the States, from Germany, because it felt a little bit more comfortable for me at the time. But I also learned, that you have to be very, very cautious, especially with other expats and other foreigners. And I think for those of you who are living and staying already for many years in the Philippines will agree with this guy, with this tip here, to be extra cautious with other foreigners. And I also have met a lot of foreigners during my travels also in the Philippines. And yes, you have the majority of the foreigners, the expats, are basically normal, healthy guys. I'm not talking only physically healthy, but also mentally and psychologically healthy. But you have really also freaks. You have a lot, no, not a lot, but you have some weirdos and some real freaks roaming the streets of the Philippines. Yeah, so all kinds of sketchy characters, fishy people. You don't know what they are up to, and you also don't know, we don't know where these people are coming from. Yeah, they're coming from a Western country, but why are they in the Philippines? Coming back to your motivations, I'm just talked about these positive motivation, because this is what I am, I either come for traveling, for dating, or I love nature a lot. But trust me, some expats, they are in the Philippines because maybe they are wanted by the police in their home country. I don't know. There's something going on. They have a criminal record. So you don't know these guys. You don't know what they're up to. Again, don't trust everyone, especially not any foreigner in the beginning. Take your time, be patient, and be very, very selective with whom you associate with and want to associate with. Other expat veterans in the Philippines or even in Thailand, they will tell you exactly the same thing. I find this one of the greatest tips here on the list. And tip number 10 is to obey Philippines law. Yeah, sounds like a no-brainer, but like I just mentioned, some sketchy, fishy characters, foreigners, expats in the Philippines, they are in the Philippines because they could not or did not want to obey the law in their home country. Okay? Canada, US, Germany, France, Italy, you name these countries. Yeah? So you can imagine what they're going to do in the Philippines. There are some crazy foreigners around. Most of you probably have heard of this crazy story of this American dude who just robbed a jewelry store in Da Nang, Vietnam a few weeks ago. Very young guy. I mean, this requires a video for itself for this topic, but unbelievable. But you have people, you have guys who are committing these kind of crimes, and I don't know what's going on in their mind, but these people exist. And just to obey the Philippine laws is for me just so common sense, because I don't like certain laws. I can tell you, I'm very transparent. You know, there are certain laws I also don't like, especially in my home country. Yeah, I don't like these laws, but I obey them because I consider myself a law-abiding citizen. So this is the way I know it. This is the only way I ever knew it. So I certainly will do the same thing in the Philippines, because for me this is really a no-brainer. Okay, and if you are still doubtful, then I suggest you go watch some videos about Philippine prisons and jails. Some YouTubers, they entered Filipino jails and made some very nice video about the life in Filipino jails. And I don't think you want to end up in some of these jails like this comrade now in Vietnam, who is certainly going to be sent for a very, very long time into a Vietnamese prison. And I don't know what to say. I mean, this is the last thing, the worst thing. You want to end up in a Vietnamese prison. Anyway, so these are the 10 tips here basically. And here's my bonus tip at the end of this video, because we're almost through. My personal bonus tip for you, especially as a newbie, but also someone who has been living in the Philippines already for quite some while, but still has not figured out things completely or still running into trouble. Keep in mind that you are your biggest liability. The biggest liability is still you. And I mentioned this already earlier, how I felt so entitled in my early days coming to Southeast Asia. What I explained in my other video, you know, I was a chef. I was in a very high position. I worked for a large 5-star resort there in Borneo. And yeah, I felt like special because I received a good education. I made it to Malaysia, well-paid job, you know, great remuneration package and everything. So I felt really as something special, you know. I felt very entitled. But this mentality always got me like knocked out, you know. And so I had to change my attitude, also with the help of other people who gave me a little bit of advice, you know. So I had this mentality, this attitude of I was the prize, you know, and everybody has to follow me and listen to me. No, not at all. And the same goes with the Philippines and with the Filipino people, and especially the same goes with Filipinas, with the girls, you know. You don't want to go or arrive in the Philippines with this entitlement mentality that you are the prize, yeah, and the Filipinas have to come jumping on your lap and proposing to you. No, it's actually the other way around, okay, in my opinion. Yes, you should have a healthy self-esteem. You should know who you are and what you are. There's nothing wrong with that. You want to be confident and have a healthy self-esteem, right? But you should actually see it the other way around, and you want to like really look for the prize in the Philippines, you know, finding a good Filipina, finding your prize, finding your diamond. Because, as I also mentioned in one of my previous videos, perhaps it is even way more difficult to find your prize in the Philippines. I'm talking about the good Filipinas, yeah? Because, as I mentioned, I released a video the other day where I talk exactly about this. The title of this video is something like, are expats still the top choice for Filipinas? Yeah, and I received very interesting feedback also on this video, because when I came to the Philippines 20 years ago, things were different, you know, also with dating Filipinas and the dating dynamics. But now 20 years later, fast forward, things have changed. Also the Filipinos have changed. They have no different, besides of social media and all these kind of things, they are now living in a different social environment and also different economic environment. They have more economic means now and opportunities and possibilities. So don't again think you can feel as the big guy, as the prize. Yeah. Because perhaps it's not so easy to find a good Filipina. But if you want to find a good Filipina, if you want to at least increase your chances and your odds to find a good one, then please check out the link in the description. The team of Christian Filipina will assist you with your endeavor when dating, or if dating Filipina women is really your main ambition, your main goal to move, travel, or even retire in the Philippines. So with that being said, I'm checking out for today. I hope you found these 10 tips very useful. I also hope you find my comments very useful. My commenting here is based obviously on my own personal experience. And again, I think these 10 tips are very solid rules everybody should have. Maybe not all 10, maybe you mix and match and pick something out which you have not thought about yet. Maybe you are somebody who is kind and polite already. Maybe you're a monk, I don't know. So you don't need to worry about that. But you know, I'm pretty sure you can pick a bunch of these tips from the list here and integrate it into your own mental model, your philosophy, your guidepost system, you know, your framework, so to speak. Because again, to have or having massive, intense, unbreakable rules also when it comes to traveling and living in a foreign country with foreign people will help you tremendously to stay safe. So thanks for watching, looking forward to your comments, and I'm gonna see you in one of my next videos. Take care, bye bye.